and welcome back to Capitol Tonight. Well, it was not just school children who enjoyed a break this week. The legislature was off too, and so we in the Political Press Corps thought that we might actually get a bit of a breather from the breakneck pace of political news. Wrong! As it turns out, there was plenty to report this week, and in keeping with Capitol Tonight tradition, the reporters of the Roundtable are here to discuss it all with you and with me. Casey Seiler is the state editor for the Albany Times-Union. He was brave enough to venture out in that weather to join us. And our very own Mike Whittemore is with us tonight, too. He just had to walk down the hall to the studio, but he is brave because he spent the last week in the Capitol, and this is your debut, is it not?
On the Roundtable, yes. And getting to work, I would say, was brave, too.
Yes.
Walking down the hall, not so much.
Not so much. So
well, I think we're all wearing snow boots under the table.
Right. So. Well, don't disclose this. Right. Okay, so we'll start with the latest thing and work backwards. It's the Medicaid Task Force. You sat in on some of those. You did, I know, Mike. It was a surprise, and it wasn't exactly well received, but all of a sudden Richard Gottfried, who was very critical, had a change of heart.
Yeah, the redesign team was supposed to meet for 2 days. They met on Thursday and really plowed through these 79 proposals that are now recommendations in the plan. And at the end of the day on Thursday, it took a number of members of the redesign team by surprise. They decided to move toward a vote. It left a couple of people feeling bruised. Laura Castle of Medicaid Matters, which is a kind of patient advocacy group,
right,
abstained and walked out and did not take part in the Red Room event where, with great ceremony, the redesign team handed off this big fat binder to Governor Cuomo. But that aside, it really was quite an accomplishment by the redesign team, and it really brought together kind of, you know, the lion sort of laid down with the lamb, you might say.
Yeah, there were very few critics. I mean, a panel of 27 people, 24, 25 that were present, only a couple of people, Richard Gottfried being the one that was the most vocal, and even afterwards he was criticizing a little bit, saying, you know, this isn't really what's going to happen. Are we going to be able to cut this much? I don't know. He was promoting the millionaire's tax again, and then on our show last night, he said those same things. Even a couple of weeks ago, he was on the show and said, I don't think we'll meet the deadline. They end up meeting it early.
Right.
But then, as you alluded to, that he walked back that in a statement just a little while ago, saying, maybe we can do this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my initial response was, oh, someone got to him. However, it was a joint statement between him and also Shelley Silver, the speaker. And I sort of thought, you know, when you have the lions laying down with the lambs, as you put it, Casey, what choice do you have, really? If 1199 and Greater New York Health Hospital Association, as the governor said this morning on the radio, these are the mega, you know, battlers for the budgets in the past. If they say okay, so, you know, all right, so where are you going to go?
And Ken Rasky from the Hospital Association spoke with what seemed like genuine emotion last night at the you were there at the event as well, about the fact that he was there with the representative of SEIU that he's been sort of at almost daggers drawn with in the past, and that they both agreed that this was really, as opposed to kind of fighting it out in the public square, that this was the best way to go about it.
I think it was also a little bit symbolic too. Governor Cuomo said yesterday that, you know, this is a big deal in the sense that they passed this early.
Right.
Albany's used to doing it on time or way late, as the case may be. So saying that, kind of pushes everyone along a little bit, I think, in a sense.
Well, and to that particular point, now we're going to turn to education, which obviously we've been actually talking about a lot on the show. You guys have been writing a lot about. There was a definitive cut there. This was a hole in the budget that we didn't know about. Now the Medicaid team says, okay, here's how we're going to make $2.3 billion, not $2.85. All of a sudden, not $2.85.
Megan always has an ace up his sleeve.
Yeah, right. The budget director, tricky.
But Cuomo's people were very careful to say, oh, we're not bringing the target down. You know, these are savings that we've achieved, so we just have to cut less.
Right,
but anyway,
right. Yes, no, lest you think that we're playing around with the numbers, because we are not. Education is going to be the next biggie, I think, at any rate, and I think that the Long Island Republicans are going to really dig in, it looks like. So are you anticipating that next week at the Capitol? What did you hear this week at all? I know the legislators weren't there, but what did you hear? I
mean, that certainly can be an issue, and especially with, Democrats. I mean, those Long Island Nine, certainly, I mean, they've come up and they've kind of backtracked it a little bit, some of them. But, I mean, again, it goes back to the millionaire's tax, and people, a lot of the Assembly Democrats, at least some of them, really want to see this and don't want to see these drastic cuts. And the unions are pushing back as well, big time. We saw that NICET ad this week, a very well-crafted ad, and it's just being peppered all over the airwaves right now. So I mean
they're alone, right? Because 1199 and Greater New York are not doing the ads that they usually do, these crazy ad campaigns that they used to. CSEA and PEF, they haven't even started negotiating. You guys reported that.
Yep.
It's like NICET and the teachers out there by themselves, and it's nothing like what we're seeing in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the four big portions of the budget, healthcare, that's being taken care of to a certain extent by the redesign team. You've got state worker expenses. That's between the governor and the unions, pretty much. And then you've got localities. That's being handled by the mandate relief team. And then you've got education. And education is really kind of the only jump ball, as it were, that's really going to have to be taken care of by the legislature. And that's where we all get into trouble, especially in the Senate.
Right, and particularly in the Senate because it's so close. But also I think that you're right in terms of the Assembly Democrats. They have always been so closely allied with NICET, the statewide teachers union, and UFT. And we had Mike Mulgrew here, the president of that union, last night, and he didn't sound like he wanted to make very many concessions at all. Plus, we saw, and this is going to come up on Tuesday, Senator John Flanagan, the Long Island Republican that he is, puts out a bill to end last in, first out, which is Mayor Bloomberg's big issue, and now some upstate superintendents are also starting to get on board with that. So that's coming up on Tuesday. You, Mike, covered the redistricting battle that's ongoing. The Democrats are not letting up on
the Senate Democrats are doing a lot. They're pushing on the Republicans a lot, and which is good for them. They want to hold the feet to the fire, especially when it comes to redistricting, because the entire Republican conference signed on to Ed Koch's redistricting pledge, and now they're accusing them of kind of holding up the process in this kind of procedural game that they're playing, this thing with the rules where the legislation, Governor Cuomo's legislation for independent redistricting, is sponsored by the Rules Committee, or as Senator Breslin calls it, Senator Rules.
They're definitely playing with the rules and trying to get an advantage.
It would appear the Democrats certainly claim that what they're doing is they're trying to prevent people from signing on as co-sponsors to Cuomo's legislation, which makes it look like an orphan. And therefore the Democrats won't be able to say, hey, we've all signed on. Where are the Republicans? What the Republicans, the Senate Republicans say is that, well, there are a lot of plans out there. There's Dave Valesky's bill. There's John Bonasek's bill. There's all kinds of possibilities out there. So, we'll
and plus the Republicans are saying that listen, let's focus on passing an on-time budget, and then we'll focus on redistricting. Is what
but
their
the problem
response
is, I think that the Democrats, and even the governor to some degree, would like to see the whole enchilada come together sort of magically all at once. Again, next week we're going to be seeing this because the Senate Republicans will conference it when they get back, and we will see Ed Koch on the 1st. On Tuesday we'll be here to press his sort of little thing and go around and point and call people liars. So that should be pretty interesting. Right, that should be pretty interesting. The redistricting bill obviously is going to come into play when it comes to the congressional race in New York 26. We're seeing more of that play out because that district might not even exist pretty soon. And the governor puts out this really weird bill, I thought it was kind of unusual, where he wants to extend the period for special elections. I had no idea why that was.
Well, every special election, this issue comes around, and it's the question of whether or not there's enough time in these special elections, because it's usually, like 4 to 6 weeks, basically, until the election has to go off, and military personnel essentially don't have enough time.
Right.
And he's trying to match the federal law, but it's actually doubling the federal law, something like that. He's getting a lot of criticism for that. Let's just make it the same.
Yeah. There may be something else behind it, but I haven't figured out what it is. Unfortunately, we are out of time also, so we will have to ruminate on that later. Casey Seiler, thank you. Mike Whittemore, thanks very much for being here. I really appreciate it, guys. Be safe out there.
Very welcome.